Hello true believers. The preview for the 4th issue of the 5-issue Sentry mini-series has been finally released. And if you ask me, the first few pages of the 4th issue had to make up for some problems from the 3rd issue. I'm referring to the major lack of Bob and Sentry in the 3rd issue of his very own comic. Unfortunately, the preview and the issue start off with a completely wasted page. We start off with a close shot on Cranio and a look on his face, as if he is getting butt raped by Billy. You know that I was suspicious about that fucker since the 2nd issue. The rest of the page is more of what we already got before in the 3rd issue. It's a recap of how Cranio expected to meet the Sentry in Sentry World, yet ended up meeting Bob and had to immediately leave, since with Bob in Sentry World, Sentry had to be in the real world. The 2nd page unfortunately offers more of the same. Billy switches positions, but then heads out to take on the Sentry, something that was already teased in the 3rd issue as well. It is still interesting to see that Billy's arm isn't regrowing back, where the Sentry himself has an insanely potent healing factor. Billy also didn't create his old scout suit out of thin air, like Sentry usually does it. Instead, Billy only took the scout cowl with the cape out of the closet and put it on. That makes me wonder if Billy has the same powers as the Sentry, or if he has less power overall. In either case, one would assume that Sentry should be more powerful and that they shouldn't be fighting for long. But at the same time, the 5th and last issue teases that the Sentry and Bob will die and that something new will arise in their place. All of that is very intriguing, and I'm looking forward to see how the plot will unfold and finally come to a conclusion. I would also like to state that, even though I sounded like a negative Nancy in my videos for the previous issue, and now in this video too, I'm still not disappointed by the book. I just think that this already amazing book could have been even better if the pacing had been handled slightly better. Anyway, let us continue with the preview. It seems that Scout will take off to face the Sentry, who we finally see again on the next page. And this page, I hate and love at the same time, for many reasons. I hate how the page starts off with more copy-pasted dialogue. This is the 3rd time we see Sentry stating that he is not Bob anymore. Jeff Lemire, we get it. Sentry is not Bob. Not anymore. Not Bob at all actually. The first 2 panels of this page could and should have been used to further establish the stakes for everyone involved. Or at least something along those lines. But, I love how the page starts off with the focus on Bob's shattered conflictor watch, and the Sentry looking at it. I believe that the shattered watch is supposed to symbolize Bob's shattered nature and life. Bob was able to finally find a little bit of peace by living by the clock and becoming the Sentry at certain times during the day in a different reality. It wasn't a perfect life, but it had granted him at least some stability. And now the bad luck has caught up with him, and his existence has been shattered again. That goes on to further show the sad and tragic life of Robert Reynolds. Then I hate the art in this page. Weirdly enough, the page is drawn by Kim Jacinto, who had switched to drawing the Sentry World scenes. Yet here we have him drawing scenes in the real world. And to be honest with you, these are not some of his best drawings. Look at the art. It's clearly and visibly rushed like crazy. In the 3rd panel, Sentry doesn't even look human, and in the 4th panel he looks like he is taking one of those shits which make you sweat. Absolutely horrible. Dear Kim Jacinto, you are better than this. I'm really wondering if there went something very wrong behind the scenes when it comes to the art. Anyway, the last 2 panels on the page are still awesome, because we see Toni trying to establish his alpha male dominance over the Sentry and telling him that he can't let him roam free outside. Toni wants to continue containing the Sentry inside the prison he built for him. But the Sentry, like the badass he can be, is having none of that shit. The only way to make the scene cooler would have been a slightly different dialogue. Maybe something like, "You ain't gonna contain shit, you little bitch." One thing that confused me about this page was Sentry calling out Cranius' name and stating that he saw him. I wonder when that happened, since Bob was already inside Sentry World and Sentry in the real world when Bob saw Cranio for the first time. Now the question is, if Sentry still sees everything that Bob is experiencing in the Sentry World. Let's just assume that something like that is the case and move on. On the next page, a pissed off Sentry busts his way out of 6 miles of solid steel, concrete, and ground. For all of my European brothers, that's 9.7 kilometers. Hey, you know how they say that there are no stupid questions, but only stupid answers? Well, no one's favorite chocolate American Misty Knight appears to prove everyone wrong and ask the obvious. Shut the hell up, Misty, and go back to doing the Wakanda Forever. Toni summons his Iron Man suit and gets ready to fly after Sentry and talk some sense into him. That talk apparently requires Iron Man to channel his inner Voltron and summon his Hulkbuster suit. It looks like Iron Man likes to do the talking with his fists. I'm fine with that, since the book has been rather light on the action so far. So Sentry turning Iron Man into a high-tech toaster or coffee machine would be a welcome change. That is it for the preview. Now let me make a prediction for the plot development in this issue. I predict that Hulkbuster Iron Man will attack the Sentry, but get pimp slapped into oblivion rather quickly. Then Sentry will face and fight Scout. I expect that he will be winning the fight, but that at the same time Cranio will kill Bob inside Sentry World, which will weaken, or even kill the Sentry. Scout will finish the Sentry off, and that will be the cliffhanger of the issue. I'm making this prediction because one would think that this is the only logical way it could go from now on. Yet the preview description tells us about a whole another plot. The same happened for the third issue, where we got something else than what we were told we would be getting. I feel like only comic books get away with stuff like that. Anyway, the issue we took a look at today will be released on the 26th of September. That is next week. Make sure to pre-order and buy it. I'm sure that the issue will be a great read. Until then, have a nice day, and as always, stay vigilant.